On behalf of TIE Ahmedabad, TIE Coimbatore, and TIE Nagpur, we welcome all to today's session under Impact Speaker Series mentoring session on the topic Demystifying the Funding Code and Investors' Perspective. The series is aimed to focus on various important aspects like market trends, challenges, and changing scenarios. We are confident that the insights and learning shared by the mentors and leaders will be beneficial for MSMEs, established and emerging startups. So with that, now I would request Piali to please introduce our presidents and take over the session from here.
Thanks, Nidhi, and I'm looking forward to the interaction this evening. And I'm also delighted to welcome our chapter presidents, Mr. Nitin Sachdeva, President TIE Nagpur and the Managing Director of Delaplex, Mr. Saurabh Mehta, he is the President of TIE Ahmedabad and mentor at mytripkarma.com and founder of Avani Simcon Technologies, Ms. Ranjana Singhal, she is President of TIE Coimbatore, Managing Partner of the Terra Company and On The Go Restaurants, and she is Managing Director at Cafe Totaram Private Limited. Today, this session will be moderated by our presidents, and with this, I hand over to you, Nitinji.
Thanks, Piali, for that introduction. Before we actually start with the session, we have a small ceremony to be undertaken. And Nidhi, there is a video to be run for these Coimbatore sponsors, right?
Sir, we are taking in the end, like before the Q&A part.
Okay, so I welcome everyone here today on this session. And it's a privilege to have our immediate TIE Global Chair, Mr. Mahavir Pratap Sharma with us as a mentor speaker, as an tech expert, making us understand the funding code, demystifying all the complexities in it. So I would not take much of the time in introducing Mahavir, since he is known to all of us. He did his graduation from Maharaja's College, University, Rajasthan. And he has been running Rajasthan Angels. He's the present founding chair of TIE India Angels as well. So without much delay, over to you, Mahavir, for your brief introduction.
Thank you, Nitin. Thank you, Saurabh, and thank you, Ranjana, and of course, the fabulous EDs that you have behind you. I think it's always good to be interacting with the chapters. And, TIE is a new initiative on the angel investment, which will strengthen our footprint into early stage, idea stage startups and wherever our chapters are. Is critical to any ecosystem when it comes to incubators and accelerators or our programs, TIE University or TIE Access or TIE Women. Without investments, just mentoring only means gyan. But when we put in our money, when we invest in a local ecosystem, we really become relevant and we really play an important role. So in the light of that, I would talk generally about the startup ecosystem, the investments, and also where TIE falls in line with the investment proposition that works well with it. And I would look forward to your questions and rather speak more about the subjects so people can benefit more rather than talk about myself. I'm a charter member of TIE, and it's really been a pleasure working with TIE.
Thanks, Mahavir. We really appreciate the generosity. Just to add, Mahavir has been for 8 years on the Global Board of Trustees at TIE Global as well. He was the Vice Chair in 2019, and 2020 he was the TIE Global Chair. So without taking much of your time, friends, let us jump directly to the topic, because we have an expert here and a lot of questions are received from the pre-registered participants. Mahavir, with your due permission.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So before we start, Mahavir, the discussion on demystifying the funding codes, definitely there would be a lot of insights which you will share. A major question that is received from a large number of participants who are seeking fund for their ventures. So it would be great for all participants in case you can share the insights on how funding works, especially like we also have TIE India Angel now. So just a connect with funding and the TIE India Angel introduction.
So I'll tell you where Thai India Angel fits. I know everyone knows how funding or angel or VC funding works broadly, but I'll tell you, when a startup comes out of college or when a startup starts with a simple idea, the first prototype, the first proof of concept that they have to create normally comes from with their money or state government grants or friends and family. And then they have to go to the market, they have to go to try and sell it, raise revenue, make some money, and kind of prove the fact that whatever problem or solution they have is workable. Now from here to a point where they have month-on-month growth or scaling up that's happening, or they have captured a city like Nagpur or Ahmedabad or Coimbatore, now for them to scale up pan India, they need money. So there is a kind of a gap where all the other angel networks and India-based angel networks actually want you to look at post revenue. They want you to be in existence for 1 year. They want you to have growth month on month. They need you to have some sort of a seed investment so that validation is there. And of course, lots of compliances that are needed and due diligence, which is required, financial and legal. But in between that, from that 10-15 lakh grant that the state government might give, or the incubator accelerator might invest in, or friends and family might invest, there is some money that's needed, and which in our estimate could be anywhere from 10-25 lakhs to up to 500,000, which is 3.5-4 crores. So that money is where Thai India Angel plays a role. And why we have put it at that level is because I think Thai's philosophy has always been to work at the bottom of the pyramid. We really want to work with idea stage and early stage companies. And I say idea stage, I really mean idea stage companies that have IPA-able products. I mean, you can't have a generic product or something that's easy to copy, or something that's already in the market and you have a strategy which is different from the other people, but something that has an IP behind it that we can invest in the idea stage. Otherwise, at an early stage where you have the prototype ready, you have the POC ready, you have a unique product, or you have a unique strategy to grow or scale, that's where we want the chapter. So you should go to your local chapter. The chapter will do the validation, the due diligence. They will do the valuation. And then they will invest an X amount, which is 1/4 of the total amount that they need, up to more than at least 1/4. And then the rest of the money, 3 times that money, can come from other charter members across India. So we are multiplying a chapter's bandwidth to invest. And we will handhold. So if while you are doing valuation, while we are doing your due diligence, while you are trying to see if this company is investable or not, we are there in the back. We have a full admin staff. We have experienced angel investors who will help you to see if this is working, if this is worth investable, if this is the right valuation. So we are hand-holding you. And once you have decided and we have agreed that this is a good startup, you've brought in at least 25%, it opens to every charter member across the globe, and every individual then invests. So what benefits that does this bring are 3 or 4. One, of course, the large number of investors, the better it is for the startup. You have so much of experience coming your way. You can reach out to people, though your lead investor will be a chapter-based local person because compliances and reporting is required at a local level. But you have these people who can bring you wisdom that they have from outside. They can help you get follow-on rounds. And thirdly, you have people sitting in across India or across the world where they can provide you with market access if required for your app. So that thing is something that brings threefold value. And the fourth value that I think will kick in, which is very, very critical, is about a year down the line. Once you have that label of this is a Thai invested company, a Thai India, then every angel network, every angel fund. I mean, I don't know of a fund that invests in India that co-founders, founders are not charter members of, and you name the fund, from a small fund to a big fund. So our follow-on rounds are within the Thai fraternity. So if they see that we are following a process, they see that we have done our due diligence well, they see that the company has grown from X to Y, the next round of funding. So it's a win-win solution for the investor. It is a win-win solution for the startup in your chapter, and it is win-win for the ecosystem because you are there to handhold, mentor, invest, and then take them to the world. So I think this program actually bridges the gap from where the big networks or big funds are to where the government or the accelerators or incubators leave you. And that is where TIE's role is. And that is where we saw the gap. And that's why I think the ecosystem of India's angel investment has a huge potential. And that's where we want to work at. And that's what I think, in my opinion, we want to stick to.
Great. Thanks for giving that overall perspective of TIE India Angel, Mahavir. That's
Sure.
Really great. What are the basic valuation a potential investor looks before investing? And how fast an entrepreneur can secure funding?
Valuation is a challenge. Valuation is there's no set formula. I mean, I hate when people say that I need 1 crore and my valuation is 10 crore. Valuation is not a 10 times multiplier of the cash flow or the money that you need. Valuation is not because you want to dilute a certain amount of equity and you need this much money and that's a valuation. Valuation is not what someone got valuation in 2015 or 16 or 18, 19. Things are very dynamic. So it's valuation is something that the local chapter leads, and we have to work collectively. We look at what strengths the team is bringing, what is the idea. So it's valuation is a work in progress, and that will be very dynamic and will change with the market situations. But I think we need to work on the valuation bit collectively with the startup, because we don't want too much equity. We don't want to give them less money, because if they need more money, they'll die without more money. So it's a very precarious situation, not only for the startup, for us as investors also, because we are not trying to negotiate because we want more equity. We're not trying to negotiate because we want to give them less money. We want to give them the right amount of money. We want to give them a right amount of money so that even if we need a follow-on round, which is, let's say we give 50 lakhs or 1 crore now, but if there's a follow-on round of 3 crores or 3.5 crores, we are there in the next follow-on round also for that company. It's very, very critical on the valuation. I forget what the second part of the question was.
How soon can the entrepreneurs approach?
The entire program is on an app. It's on a mini website. The startups have to upload everything on the website. Every chapter has 2 or 3 chapter leads. They have to look at this thing. There's a deal flow that happens at the chapter level. The chapter leads tick mark what is right, what is not right, what is wrong, what is short. They do their due diligence, financial and legal, talk to a few customers maybe if required, go and visit this place, look at the papers being in place and compliances and then they send it to the national. The national deal flow again will happen once a month. So I think it's about a 2-month cycle. I give 4 weeks to the chapter and 4 weeks to the national committee to do their due diligence and check everything and bring it up in the next deal flow. I mean, like this 8 weeks could be 10 weeks because you've just missed a chapter deal flow, and the chapter, by the time you upload, you've missed the monthly deal flow nationally. So 8 to 10 weeks is where I think money should be available for a startup if everything is going as per requirement.
Sure. And apart from TIE India Angel, generally it is seen that lack of funding is one of the biggest reasons for failure of startups. And sometimes even the entrepreneurs often do not have proper knowledge on how to find investors. Your thought on how entrepreneurs can approach investors?
I personally feel that the startups and entrepreneurs really need to do a lot of hard work in researching about the investors that they want. They really need to find the right match of investors. So even when they are looking for investors, they really need to find, even as a lead, you don't want a lead who will not contribute. So you really have to be very, very critical in doing your research. Do you want TIE? Do you want other angel networks? Do you want to wait for everyone else, or do you want to get someone because he or she will bring value to your company, which is critical to your company? And that is what I call smart money, intelligent money. And so the onus is absolutely on the startup to do their due diligence. They need to understand what is right or not. If they feel that, Nitin, you are not the right lead and Saurabh is the right lead, they should insist on that. Saurabh does not have the bandwidth. Fair enough. He can be an observer and a proxy can work. There are ways to find ways out, but you really need to have, the onus is on the startup. It's not on us to do our diligence and see if I'm right for the company. I mean, we are all entrepreneurs, we're all intelligent people, we're all multitaskers, we can all bring value. But if the startup feels that this person can bring more value, I think they should be so long as there's no conflict, that person is not invested, is not related to any of the co-founders, and has no prior history with that startup, we should be okay with him or her leading as the lead and being the the person that they should be leading out. But the onus and the responsibility lies with the startup.
Great. And on the same lines, Mahavir, your thoughts on importance of having more than one active co-founder for capital-seeking ventures. Does it affect the decisions as well?
Absolutely. We've stopped investing in a single co-founder company. I mean, I think even two is less. You need to have at least 3 to 4 co-founders. I think you really need to have co-founders that are one better than the other. I think it has to be the right match. Again, and I've quoted this and I will leave it at that. When you're looking for your co-founders, when you're starting to work with co-founders, you were as a child, you had no choice on who your parents were or who your siblings were. But when you found a company, your co-founders are your siblings and your first investor is your set of parents. You now have the choice to decide what track or who do you want to live with. And that is what a startup should be thinking. It's not as simple as ye start kiya, band kiya, I have failed as a startup. It's okay to fail, but basic mistakes of finding the right co-founders, finding the right investors, and finding the right timing to enter and solve a problem should not be committed. And that's where our mentoring and that's where our TIE programs at the back end work, that you really need to work well and have the right product and service at the right time.
Initially, you discussed about stages of funding and different rounds. So some experiences that you can share and some case studies that help ventures understand the right approach out of your experience.
There are umpteen stories, and as I said, if it's an IP-able product and if it's something that no one else has done ever before, obviously, it gives us a great advantage, and we would love to invest. We invested in the AI company 5 years ago, and believe it or not, we invested just 1 crore and at a valuation of 25 crores. We just got 3% my thing is that back then it was a different story. Now everyone is saying AI, ML. So things are very, very different from time point of view and domain point of view. But I personally feel that it's examples of someone coming to me and saying that they're doing something differently and they're going to do social media or e-commerce or a marketplace. Somehow they really need to have something very, very unique or something very different for them to come to me. An app for a school or a college or a restaurant. All these things are so overdone. I'm not saying that there is no room. There's always room, but I still feel that someone really has to come up with a really a great story. And it's all storytelling, and it's all having the right team to deliver that story. So I think it's all very, very critical from that point of view.
Uniqueness and the timing, that is a key as per you.
Absolutely.
And contrary to this, some ventures have a misconception that the type of business they are in do not get funded, and feasible options are only savings and credits, friends and family, bank loans. Your piece of advice for such entrepreneurs?
So if it's not a scalable, if it's just a business that will grow 10-20% year on year, it is obviously not investable. It might be a great profit-making venture for you, and you might not be burning. And you can give me an example of companies burning even despite going to public. I can understand that, but a regular business is not investable, as you know very well in our domain. I would be happy. For them, banks or loans or debt funding or friends and family are obviously the options. But I personally feel that if you can innovate, if you have a strong base, which is a company that's growing 10-20% year on year, and now if you can improvise and get technology into it and make it a scalable model without investing a huge amount of capital or having huge operating costs, I think then it possibly can become investable. But it should not just seem that way. It should actually, your intent should be in that geography. It should not just be the brand that you have created and trying to get valuation for that.
Great, Mahavir. Thank you so much. One last thing I would like your advice on. When startups and entrepreneurs pitch to investors, so what is the investor's perspective, whether it is the bottom line or the top line, primarily of any importance?
Both. I mean, it's a very tough question, and it depends on the domain and sector. I mean, for me, bottom line is very important, or at least road to the bottom line is very critical. I mean, I tell people, I tell everyone that top line is very critical, and especially B2C, the top line is very, very important in terms of numbers of customers. In B2B, the revenue, the gross revenue or the net revenue becomes important. But I personally feel that your fundraise at the stage that you come to an angel network like ours, this money should get you to a break-even point at least. And if you don't have that roadmap, if you don't have that vision, and if you don't have that ability to reach that position with our money, I would not invest in that. So I think both are important. Depends on what it is, what the scale is, and what the idea is. But it's very, very critical that you. I mean, I would still give them a follow-on round despite having a burn. But beyond that, I don't see that happening. For example, if you're really acquiring people, if you're really putting in money to acquire people, your cost of customer acquisition is recovered by 1 or 2 cycle of sales with that customer, and you're investing heavily into R&D, if that kind of a money is needed, and if you have to scale up and after a cycle or 2, the customer and it's a recurring customer, it's not a one-time customer that you pays and goes, and if it's a recurring income, then I would still give them a second round of money and want them to scale up despite losing money. But it depends on case to case, idea to idea, and it'll vary as we go along.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mahavir.
Sure.
That finishes my allocated time right on neck. And we're happy to hear the highlights of TiE India Angel Network and work along with you very soon. So with this, I hand over to the ED, Payali.
Yes.
If you can invite Saurabh.
Yes, thank you so much. It was very interesting. And we have a lot more set of questions with us ready. I'll request Mr. Saurabh Mehta to take over. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Payali. And I think a lot of things have been covered, and there might be a little bit of repetition here. But anyway, the certain set of questions some of the investors have asked. How much percentage of equity an investor may demand from the venture? And I think we already have done that, right? And is it necessary that every time investors will ask for a place on the company's board?
No, it's not. It's not necessary. It's not required. But an observer seat is required, and certain clauses of in terms of, and let's go a little detailed on term sheets and stuff. Right of first refusal, drag along, tag along. All these things are mandatory. All these things, so long as they need our approval. A board seat is not a must because there are liability issues, and we have realized that. But an observer board seat is important, so that we can demand documents and compliances. If we are co-investing, Saurabh, with someone else is taking a lead, we are okay to let go so long as the other co-investing organization or network or fund is strong enough, has a track record, because SEBI is monitoring them, so they have to be compliant. We are okay to let go of even an observer seat so long as we are not the major investor. And there will be situations 1 year down the line where we will be happy to co-invest. I mean, there already are, and we were talking about Jito just now. There will be other networks that we're already in talks with, and we'd be happy to co-invest because we don't want to, we want to work collaboratively rather.
Right. So basically what you're saying is if there is somebody else also, then at least one of the organizations has to monitor the startup and get back to the rest of the investors.
At this stage, it is required. I mean, I honestly feel that if this is a very sensitive early stage up to growth stage. The first 2 years are very, very important for a startup. I think it's in the benefit or of the startup to be doing that. So I think yes, someone has to take the lead.
Correct.
And the fact, sorry,
yeah.
and the fact that we are answerable to 40, 50 charter members who've invested because this thing came from TiE Ahmedabad, the compliance is very critical. The fact that what is the current valuation, have they raised more round of money, what is the cap table look like? Because every year, if we have 500 charter members investing across 30 companies in a year, our secretariat will die sending everyone the cap table and the share that they hold and the valuation that they had put in. It has to be already on an app. So I can see how many companies I have invested, what is my shares, what is the money they had put in, how much was OCPS, CCPS, whatever. So everything is on that app. So it's very critical that the compliance and uploading of all the reports happen. So it's and we're answerable to all the other chapters and charter members. So,
right.
So we need someone to lead for sure, for that reason also.
And see, there are so many valuation metrics, and nowadays with all the hype going around and everybody saying that this is how the valuation is, like you said, 10 times, 15 times. But I mean, what is the metric? How does a startup understand? See, today, if I do a startup, I get at least 20 spreadsheets showing me different valuations.
Yeah.
And these are all ready-made spreadsheet. I just put in the numbers, it will give me a valuation. You go to the investor and he says, boss, okay, great. I don't think I'm interested. I don't think this valuation works for me.
Yeah.
And I have seen people who have had a major valuation, I mean, huge valuation right from the startup. And then for years, they could not divest or they could not get out of it.
It is actually right. Yeah. It's so I'll go. Though Nitin did ask, briefly touched it earlier, but I'll go more into detail now. So I'll give you an example. Even taking too much equity will not get the next. See, if I take 25% of the equity and bring the valuation down or 30, the next round will not happen. I mean, I will have to discount my this thing for the next round to happen because no follow-on round investor would want to give me an exit. No follow-on round investor would give 10, 15, 20 times of the valuation that I invested 3 years ago, because that would be absurd. So it's very critical. It doesn't work both ways. But I'll tell you what I do when it comes to valuation. There are different formulas, as you rightly said. Different matrices will give me different valuations, and every sector, every domain, and the competition that there is in, and not just direct competition, direct and indirect competition, both there is, valuations will vary. So what I do is, we are all good business people, we're all good entrepreneurs. So I look at the cash flow very carefully. So what I do is, if I have to value a company, I see how much money do they need for 12 months or 18 months, or to break even, as I said, or to reach a milestone where I think they will need the next round of funding, because if they started in Delhi and now they have to go to South India, so they need to have X more amount of money. I really look at that cash flow, and then I see what valuation they want, what money they need, and then try and create a percentage that works for both of them. For if any reason, despite creating a cash flow, the valuation is not justifiable because they have not done much, I would break the investment into two parts. I said, you don't take $100, you take 50 for now, give me 7%, 8% equity because the valuation is lower. I'll give you a second tranche, a third tranche, a follow-on round at a higher valuation, so that average equity that goes out is not 15 or 20%, but is 8, 12%, 13%. So that formula also sometimes works. But all of this only works if I, as an investor, am in love with the company and what the team is doing, and the startup really wants us as a team to be investing into that startup. So but it's still a very, very uncertain, unmathematical area, and it will continue to be that way, because sometimes I've had startups come to me, sir, you are giving me so much valuation, I'm getting XY valuation from that stockbroking company. I said, he's a stockbroking company. I mean, I am telling you, I am bringing in this, and you want to take that money, and they've not taken money from him or them, and they've taken money from Rajasthan Angel. So it's very, very critical that the match has to be willing from both sides, otherwise it will not work.
Great. I think that's absolutely correct, and I think you should look into the investor value rather than the actual, over and above the actual one, not rather. It's over and above that.
At this stage.
Yeah, at this stage is absolutely, the value is phenomenal.
Yeah.
The value people like us can bring to the startups, and is phenomenal. I think people like you and all. So So for now, there's a question which is, I also get asked, a lot of people come to us and also ask the same thing. Should I go for bank funding initially rather than give up so much of my equity, or should I go for investor, and so that I don't have to get an equity, I take the bank funding And then after 1 year, I go to the investor when I have built up some kind of value or some kind of cash flow or something like that.
So I do two things in these cases. If the valuation and the fund required is not matching, absolutely, one should go to the bank and raise money. Two, sometimes I also personally let them go to the bank. I mean, they should go to the bank, because see, for us, we are spoiled for choice as investors. We have so many startups that come to us anyways. I don't think that if someone has an option to go to a bank or a fund or a financial institution to raise money, they should be coming to us. I think I'd be more than happy for. I said, don't dilute your equity. Debt is a better option for you. Just go there. You have lots of capex. You have things that you can mortgage or mark a lien on, and you're better off with the bank, because that's at 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, whatever percent, depending on what sector you are in. I think it's a better money. You should do that. If you need money, come to us. Otherwise, don't dilute your equity. Neither did Dhirubhai Ambani for X number of years, and so many others did not. And I encourage them to go to the bank, actually.
Yeah, I can know, but then one of the things which I think then what I hear from you is, but if they are not able to, if there's not a huge capex and there is more like a cash flow, and if they go to the bank, then I think then they might end up paying like 30-40% before they're generating revenue back to the bank. So in that scenario, they might want to go to the investor also.
So it's
they might take
choice.
a bond. They might take a bond funding kind of thing.
So the other thing I forgot to mention to both you and Nitin's on valuation thing. Another way to look at it is also do a discount on the next round of funding. So if you and I don't agree on the valuation, and we both like to invest and be invested in as companies, and this thing, the bank funding or the debt funding is at a very high interest rate, or is counterproductive when it comes to the turnover and OPEX related, I would also look at investment into on a discount model for the follow-on round for a 1 year 20%, 2 year 30%, kind of a discount based, convertible at that point of time, also as a model would also work. There are multiple things at play, and I think this thing also works. I mean, I've also worked with companies where I've given them equity and debt both option. So actually, when you are negotiating with a startup, the bottom line is, if the startup wants you to invest and you want to invest in that startup because the team is good and the idea is good, there are ways that we can find. There can be a combination of equity and debt, where equity is not very high and the money has an upside to it, and debt is a high interest rate. And there are debt funds that we are in touch with who are charter members across, and they would be happy to do this because we are investing in the company. So multiple combination offers can also work.
So in continuation, I think I hear you correct. I mean, I always feel that convertible debt, though it's a little bit a complex instrument, convertible debt is always better along with this, so the startup doesn't have to dilute too much equity, but they still get the fund. But then if there's something goes a little awry from the plan roadmap, they have a fallback. So yes, that is fine. But does it make sense? I mean, somebody else, does it make sense that if I get a loan and then go to an investor?
It doesn't.
It doesn't give you any advantage, right?
No, it doesn't give you an advantage. I would, I don't care if you have a loan. I would say you should take a loan. Why are you diluting your equity? I mean, exactly. as soon as you tell me that you have money in the vault and you need my money, I would say, why? Your father is a rich diamond merchant. Why do you need my money? You go take money of your father. I would never invest in a company that from people who are coming from a family who are just trying to diversify, or they want young Ivy League kids wanting to do a startup. I would rather their family invest into them.
Correct. So the next question is, I mean, this is a little bit odd. When should a startup plan for an IPO?
So
startup and IPO are paradoxical questions.
It's a very late stage. I think it's not that easy. It's not definitely at the stage that we are investing in. I think IPO. I mean, now companies like Zomato and Paytm, and I mean, look at their history, their timeline, their revenue. that's when they are going for IPO. So IPO is a very, very late stage. It's not going to happen. I think it's not even worth this thinking of an IPO at this point in time.
Correct.
And for the record, if someone was asking us about this SME stock exchange, I think that's not a great thing. People who have listed have their shares fallen down because there's no trading. That's a bad idea also. If that question came from someone who is actually looking at listing at an SME exchange, which, by the way, the government's thing sounded great, has not worked.
Correct. I think somehow that it's like became like the Nano, the cheap car, and then suddenly, the Nano was a fantastic vehicle. I still like it. I still driven it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it became a cheap car. Nobody wants a aspirational thing to be cheap kind of thing. So yeah. And what's the exit strategy of an investor with some case study? Can you give some case studies where you might have exited, or somebody who has exited, say startup maybe in first 3 years or something like that?
So I'll give you because there's NDAs and there's So I'll give you a couple of startups that I have exited from. Sometimes you're lucky you exit in 3 years. Because the growth of the company is so huge. Their customer acquisition and their numbers are so huge that they need a lot of money. And the new person who is coming in is really aggressive on investing. He really sees the volume, and he or she or their fund can actually bring a lot of value because they have an existing company that can merge or be acquired and can scale. Both of them can make money. Then as an investor, we get an early exit, and it could be very, very easy for us to happen. And that has happened to one of my invested companies. Otherwise, as an investor, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hand holding. It's a lot of growth. Even after a pre-series A, we don't get exit. We probably get an exit at a series A level, which is 5 to 7 years from our investment cycle average. But it really needs to steering the company, contributing to the company on the board as an observer or as a mentor or as a director, and continue to help them scale up, continue to help them pivot, continue to help them market their product not only in India but across the globe. Continue to bring value in technology. If you are a technology person, all that is very, very critical. But exits happen anywhere from 5 to 7 years normally at our kind of a situation. And I'm hoping that when we collectively invest as TIE, the exits might be a year shorter because the process, the network, the brand of TIE, and the fact that we have people who would want to invest in them sooner than later exist in our ecosystem already.
Yeah, just if I may add a bit of this, we are invested in a friend of mine in TIE in the US, and none of us want to exit. He's wanting us to exit, but we are not exiting. He's already in the third round, and they are giving us an exit, the investors, and some of us want to add more money, and we also want a pie of the third round, but we don't want to exit. Nobody wants to exit. So it can happen both ways. The exit strategy is, I don't want to exit because this guy is doing so well.
Yeah,
he's a school friend of mine in Boston, and TIE was the first angel. 7 or 10 of us got together, invested in this company. And none of us want to exit. So it can happen both ways. I think I'm over my allocated time, and Ranjana is waiting eagerly to ask you a lot of questions.
No, but I'm glad we were able to discuss. Ranjana will have to find a new set of questions.
I know.
But
I think we did okay in the questions. Yes, Ranjana, all yours.
Yes,
Ranjana, all yours, please.
I have audience questions, but before that, I want to talk about the sponsor, our annual sponsor. I'll take just a brief 30 seconds to introduce the sponsors. Ampisoft Technology started. They are our annual sponsor. In 2009, is a technology company building highly scalable generic software engines, which can be easily customized into platforms, product catering to different services and varied domains. Ampisoft products, eBox caters to next generation education, L&D engine for skill-based and practice-oriented learning through data-driven approaches and AI-driven mentoring. Xbox is comprehensive, hyper-dimensional, heterogeneous data processing engine for sensor and IoT networks. It is with 200 strong member team. Ampisoft has been linear growth path carefully oriented toward businesses catering socially important services to humankind. It's founded by Dr. R. Pradeep Kumar, T. Punita, G. Siva Ramakrishnan, and D. Pradeep. Ampisoft will be a technology partner to TIE, Coimbatore, and will support TIE to organize various events in schools, colleges to promote entrepreneurship. Swati, can you share a video, please? It's just a brief 1-minute video. Thanks, Swati.
Sure.
A team of 4 people, 2 college professors and 2 of their students, started working as a team in few government projects and other projects. After completing their degree, both the students joined in software company, and both the professors moved over to IT industry. Few years later, they strike with an idea of improving the Indian engineering education system. Once again they all joined hands together and decided to start a company on their own. Developed a learning platform that would revolutionize the way of engineering education in India. This is the start of the journey of Ampisoft and its flagship product, eBox. And our other products, T-Box, Talent Ring.
That was the video for our annual sponsors.
Thanks, Swati.
Yes.
I have around 21 questions, but most of the questions have already been answered. So let me just select a few out of that. This has come from Professor Anupam K. Singh, who wants to say, innovation funding in India compared to US is still in infancy. What are the prospects in India and how it will unfold in future? In India, your views and suggestions, please.
So yeah, I agree with that. So I totally agree. India lags behind not just US but Israel, Germany, China, many other countries when it comes to innovation based ideas and so innovation based funding. I think this is a very, very critical domain, and I think because we have 2 angel programs, one is a US based program called the TIE Global Angels, and one is the India based angel program, the TIE India Angel. In about a year down the line, we need to bridge that gap. And I think the TIE Global Angels and the angels in the US who are Indians, who have NRI and NRO accounts and rupee accounts, will be investing in TIE India Angels. Quite a few have registered already. But I personally feel that sometimes subject expertise is needed. I have seen so many devices in medtech. And I'll give you an example. TIE Women Finals in Dubai, the top 8 companies, the finalists, I think 5 were in the medtech devices. I mean, now I'm not a doctor. I don't understand ultraviolet, infrared, and so many things behind a machine. So I'm a bad person to be investing in that company. But there has to be someone who is a subject expert. And unfortunately, in TIE, because they all become professors or they become teachers, or they're in the US working at labs and private companies. It becomes, and we don't have sector specific funds as yet, which are investing in early stage companies. So there is a gap, there is a challenge. I think TIE can fulfill that with the help of chapters in Boston and Silicon Valley and Seattle and Atlanta, because those are 4 key areas of different kinds of technology and have sector specific deep tech innovative ideas being funded at a so long as the fixed valuation kind of a thing at an idea stage. And I think that's something that we need to do, but we really need to have this model work seamlessly for a year or 2, and then we should go into that, is my thoughts about it.
Yeah, I think that's a way forward. We all have to look into investing into innovative companies, right? There's another question, of course, it's in my same domain as I am. In a food and beverage manufacturing, what aspect would investor be impressed for investment?
Oh boy, this food and beverage is a tough business to invest in, and because it's I get D2C, I get B2B2C, I get white labeled, I get so many innovative products
Yeah.
and pitches, and my fear is that the money required to acquire the customers, even if you have a fantabulous product, scaling up an FMCG product, scaling up a food and beverage product that has to excite me, whether through a dealer distributor network or direct to consumer or online, is a tough cookie to crack. I personally stay away from it because I think you need a lot of money, a lot of burn, and still there might not be a Red Bull or kind of a brand, and there might be a Bira who's struggling financially despite being a brand. So I mean, it's a very, very tough domain to be in. I really feel it's not a sector that I'm very, very optimistic about as an angel investor, because my ROIs will not be as good as they would be in some other companies. So, very, very tough sector, Ranjana. All the best to you.
I know. That's why more F&B people go now. All right. So, have we made funding easy for women entrepreneurs? Oh, it's the same.
We made funding easy for women entrepreneurs? Well, we are agnostic. And we do understand the challenges that are being faced. But our Thai Women program is a great program, and no one knows it better than you, Ranjana. I mean, we are trying to encourage. We reached out to 2,000 women entrepreneurs this year. We are planning to reach to about 8 to 10,000 this coming year. I think really, it's not about the caliber or the talent or the education that women entrepreneurs have. It's just it's just a work-life balance that they have to manage. I think as an investor, I don't ever consider that as a challenge. I really don't even think when I'm looking at someone being pitched, I mean, and I don't give extra credit because it's a women entrepreneur. For me, it's just the same. But really, I think that to have an all-women team or have equal participation, 50% women-led team and 50% male-led team is a great idea. I think we're moving in that direction. We're moving at a tad bit slow, but I think we will get there. And I think a lot depends not only on us as investors, but a lot depends on us as parents. And the generation maybe a little above mine, or who have to give equal opportunity to their girl child, to let her pursue something that she doesn't have to. I mean, the fear of getting married and going to a different city is the biggest fear that a young girl faces, and I just hate that. Why would that have to happen? So I think as parents, I feel I am more responsible, and not as an investor. And I'm talking to parents at large across India in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities.
I think beyond it's at some point of time, gender should not come in between. It's finally about the product and service and your growth and your scalability. The gender should not come in between at all. You're disrupting the hard work of a woman, I feel.
I think it's and I'm really sorry to say this, but I'll say this anyways. And I tell you, and there are men and women in this room here. I personally feel, pardon me for saying that, mothers are more to be blamed than the fathers are to be blamed, if you ask me honestly, when it comes to a girl child. So in our generation, at least. I'm telling you, because you've gone through a tough time and your mother told you something, or your mother-in-law told you something, you just inculcate that fear in that child. I really feel very, very, I mean, I'm very sure about this statement that I'm making. And I know men will agree with me. I mean,
So we have to be careful as mothers, when we are bringing a boy.
I think so. Times have changed. Times are changing. Times will change. She can do much better than the boy. I'll tell you that.
I know. True that.
Yeah.
There's one more question there. Realistically, how much IRR one can expect from startup investment portfolio?
How much one can expect from the startup?
IRR from startup.
I think IRR should be anywhere from 30 to 40% or more. If it is not that, then you are investing wrong, or you're with the wrong set of people. I would have to, and especially at idea stage, early stage. But it has to be spread over a 7-year or a 6-year life cycle. Funds that I have seen being launched in this domain have to give that much of an IRR.
I'm in the center of the meeting. I'm in the webinar.
Yeah. Okay. Swati, you need to mute yourself. Sorry, go Ranjana.
Yeah. So in post-pandemic scenario, what will be the investors looking at for them to bet on?
Oh, I think everything. I think for us as investors, and for me as investors, the last 3 months, I'm looking at everything. I'm just not looking at, like, for example, food and beverage, you said, or e-commerce or marketplaces. I mean, whatever I was scared of a year ago, I'm scared of still. Otherwise, I'm absolutely okay. I'm not very. I know medical devices. I know medical medtech. I know education. I know agri, environment. Energy, all these are great sectors. Fintech continues to grow, but I'm agnostic. I'm totally not worried about any, or very gung ho about any one sector, or worried about any other sector, I feel.
Right. Okay, this is he is a time member, Vinod Dave. Mahavir Sharma ji, I always enjoyed your speeches during your chairmanship. And he has a question too, as an investor, what were your best and worst moments?
So, by the way, my speeches have not changed. My style of speaking, I mean, I don't prepare. I know. I never read the questions that I've been sent, or so. Thank you for that. I will I appreciate that. Yeah. My best or worst moments. I had an opportunity to invest in Razorpay. I was negotiating on valuation. It was early stage of my investing in Jaipur. I could not invest back then. And multiple other things that I did not invest in. Best moment, every single day that I am with people like, I just get so much of love and energy with all like-minded people, whether it's startups or investors or fraternity, that we are all here for a cause. I think that gives me so much of, it just takes away the pain that I might have had because of a failure that I might have had. I think it's just positivity that gives me happiness on a daily basis.
Fantastic. I think I have many more questions, but I will stop it here. What do you, Swati, Piali, what's your suggestion like? Do I take more questions, or should I leave it open for people if they wish to ask? So then chat box also, there are some questions are there.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Mahavir. I think over to you, Edis.
Swati, if you would like to take the questions that are in the chat box.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
I can read it if you want me to.
Yes, okay.
So D. Kamala says, please list down the least things, I assume, not things,
yes, things,
that is expected when approaching an investor for the first time as an entrepreneur. Kind request. Least things is, of course, that if he or she is the right match for you, if he or she represents an organization or a fund or a network that works for you, if he or she will bring value in addition to bringing in money, if he or she has morals and ethics and governance and compliance that matches with your philosophy. Those are basic generic things that you need to know about your investor before you go to him or her. After that, you obviously need to understand if someone is an expert in a sector, or then you should go to him or her. If someone is overexposed in a sector, it's not good to go, because there will be conflicts. You'll have to do an NDA, and he or she might be more loyal to the company that they've invested in. So you have to be careful. If I have invested in, let's say, too many edtech companies, edtech start, I normally tell them on LinkedIn only, say, hey, stop. I have quite a few bit of exposure. So you really need to know if that person's portfolio has companies that might conflict with you. If you have a startup or an idea that adds value to an invested company, whether as a supplier or on the other side of it, it's a good idea. So all these research, all that is absolutely needed, and those are the least things that you need. The list can go on and on and on, and it's, as I said, you're finding a parent. You need to find the right parent.
Okay, I think we don't have any more questions in the chat box, but we can take one audience question. Is there anybody who would like to ask Mr. Mahavir Sharma a question, please?
Yeah, Ali, you had a question?
No, sir. I think Any of the questions that we had has either got answered or it was already there in the list. Yeah.
Mahavir, can you again stress the importance, right, of just going for an investor just for the sake of money and the value that an investor brings? I think this is one of the most critical aspects a startup has to remember. If somebody comes to me with the manufacturing this thing with my IT background, doesn't make sense. Even if I'm giving him 1 crore of rupees, it doesn't make sense for me. It doesn't make sense for him. So can you again put it a little bit more perspective? Because I think this is where everybody should look when they look for an investor.
So I personally feel it's very important. I mean, so if I had a startup and I had to look for the money, I would not look just for money. I would look for the right money. Strategic investor far outweighs, and when I say far outweigh, I would take 25% less money or 25% lower valuation, or give him or her advisory or sweat if the valuation, I don't want to change the valuation. And I, sort of, that we get all this offered at lots of times, and still a good investor would not just take advisory or sweat without him or her totally believing in the company and the idea, or him or her being able to contribute a lot. So I think it's a very, very, if someone agrees to taking an advisory or a sweat without going into details of what is expected out of him or her, is a bad investor. I would not give him, them any sweat. So it's a how should I say? It's not a psychological, but it's a mental, a game of chess that you really need to find the right match. The right, on a chessboard, you have multiple directions that you can move at an early stage, and imagine you have everything alive on your chessboard, and now you can take multiple ways to beat the opponent, and that's your competition. The route that you need to take is the easiest, and or someone that can guide you, whether it's your queen or whether what. So it's very, very critical that you strategize it well, and that only happens if you do your research and due diligence. And I would, and I'm 20 to 25% discount on the money that a strategic investor is bringing, or on valuation, is what I would take any day if I were to go any further on anything, I think.
Right.
Okay,
Hey, Mahavir, there is a very interesting question here on the chat box.
Yes.
Generally, we say when you're talking to prospective investors, be open, open your heart in front of them, put all the facts on the table. So this question says, are there any 2 or 3 points which need to be avoided during VC meetings and discussions?
Yeah, open your heart. I mean, so I think if someone takes the fact that you're finding your siblings and parents literally, then open. I think if you have committed a mistake, and which admitting it is not a wrong idea, because if someone were to pitch to me, I would sooner or later find out, because with due diligence, and which is financial, legal, and this thing, it will come out. So and it's a very small world. I personally feel disclosure is important, and if that means opening your heart out, is not a bad idea. Even if so, and because ties, we are mentors before we are investors. So if you see, many a times when startups pitch to us, we start to mentor them before we invest. Oh, no, you are doing this wrong, you should do that, or blah, blah. If you are investing, then you apply your mind, but we become mentors first. So if you open your heart out to an organization like TIE, and we are not sharks, so to say, we're truly more mentors than investors, we would tell you that, okay, your team has a challenge, or you've had a tough time, this is the way to do, or this is what you should do before you go to a funder. And that is where I mean to say that a track record and what, something. So that's why organizations like TIE are much better than people who are just out there to invest and make or see better ROIs rather than. So it's very, very critical that you do that. But and if you are wrong, it'll show anyway. So I think open your heart, disclosure. I would go ahead with it. I would do it. It is better for a long-term relationship, I think.
We have come in the name of Mr. Dhruv Shah. He has asked 2 very interesting questions. The first one is, does investor ask for SOPs or audits like ISO 9000 for angel investment? That is his question.
yeah, if your competition has it, if it is required for your industry, if your other people that you will compete with eventually have it, of course. I mean, it just depends on what you are doing. But if it's a startup, it's a tech-based startup, and other companies have not done it, and it's not required, it's not required. I mean, it's not a compulsion. It just depends on the domain that you're in or the sector that you're in, and what is your competition doing, and what I as a customer would be asking. It's for us, ultimately, it's revenue, it's sales. If it's required, it is required.
And his continuation question is, if investing in tech products like mobile apps, and does this external audit or audit necessary? What are the current practices?
So in financial due diligence, legal due diligence, an audit does happen. And even when there is a conflict at times between valuation of an investor and a startup, there are outsourced agencies that do valuation. And valuation is nothing but an audit. It is not only an audit of the company that we are investing in, it's an audit of it's an industry audit. It's an industry landmark and averages that are looked at. It is the future projections and predictions that happen. So audit is not a bad word. Audit is good for you. It makes you realistic. It bridges the gap between the investor and the startup. It bridges the gap between merger and acquisition situations. So audit is important. I think audit is required. If you can do it, it'll help you.
Sorry, just one correction. I was asking about if there is a mobile app with a huge potential, is it a source code audit? I'm asking about software audit. Is it been current general practice or not?
No. So you have to sign an NDA for sure. And especially if you're being invested by an investor who has invested in other companies, source codes are not required to be audited, not at early stage, idea stage, unless I'm buying your company. Totally, 100% buyout, then it will be audited. Not at the investment stage, not at minority investment stage for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
So is there any other participant who would like to ask Mr. Sharma a question?
With Mahavir here, there would be a flow of questions, and we'll have to continue till tomorrow morning.
I totally agree on that, sir.
Yeah, but we are well.
Yeah. No, I as I have already promised Coimbatore and Ahmedabad that I'll come down and we'll talk more about. I'll be happy to come down to Nagpur also, Nitin. So we'll continue. Conversations will continue to happen. The video is available. I'm always available. And I really look forward to the Angel program kicking off in all the 3 chapters. I'm there, always available for everyone. Thank you so much.
Yes. Okay, so with that, we come to the end of today's session. I would like to thank Mr. Mahavir Sharma for taking time out and taking this valuable session on funding. It is an extremely important step in any entrepreneur's life, and your inputs were extremely important, sir. It was an interactive session, and your vast knowledge was truly encapsulated in a crisp 1 hour. Thank you, Mr. Sharma. And I would also like to thank the participants for attending the webinar today. And thank you, Mr. Nitin Sachdeva, President TiE Nagpur, Mr. Saurabh Mehta, President TiE Ahmedabad, Mrs. Ranjana Singhal, President TiE Coimbatore, for all their support and agreeing to collaborate for this session. We would be soon hosting another mentoring session with an interesting topic, and we will keep you informed of the dates of that. Thank you.